Have the microphone working, and but it's always great to be here at this great museum, Brigade 2506. We got a lot of people here with us. I know we have members of the brigade. We have our Commerce Secretary, Alex Kelly. We have Representatives Jenna Parsons-Malika and Fabricio. We have Mike Williams, Florida Department of Law Enforcement Assistant Commissioner, Dade County Commissioners. We have City of Miami, West Miami, Coral Gables. A lot of people are here, of course. Zayas Bazan, President of the Bay of Pigs Museum and Library, and we've been very supportive of this over many years. And we're here today, and we're going to talk about the legislation I'm going to sign, which goes into issues involving the Cuban dictatorship, as well as other rogue regimes like Iran. But as we sit here today, we can say that the reason why the brigade fought when they did and did what they did is because they knew that Cuba had been taken over by a dictator, a communist dictator, and they knew that that meant the country was going to go in the toilet as a result of that. And so they were fighting to try to liberate the island from the dictatorship, and they were on the right side of history to do that. And so here we are now, decades later, and we can say that not only were they on the right side, it's been even worse than anyone could have imagined if you look at the state of Cuba today. And in 2026, it is time for the Cuban communist dictatorship to be put out to pasture once and for all. And I know that, certainly President Trump and how he's viewed the importance of our own hemisphere to have a kind of a reinvigorated Monroe Doctrine, and to certainly to have a good neighbor 90 miles off the shore of the United States and off the shore of Florida. That would be a good thing for our country. It would be a good thing for Florida. And I'll tell you this, I've been around a lot of these places in the Caribbean and throughout Latin America. If Cuba was free, it would be an amazingly successful country. I was down only in Guantanamo Bay. I didn't go outside that. I was down there not as a detainee, but as an officer in the Navy. We were down there, and again, I couldn't leave the wire, but you look at the coastline, I mean, the fishing, the boating, and I know there's so many more other things. It would really, really be a very affluent country very, very quickly. But it just shows you how pernicious communism is, because it's probably the least successful country, or certainly one of them in this hemisphere, and it's all because they've been living under the yoke of the Castro dictatorship. So I do believe that, and you remember a few years ago, I guess it was 2021, you had massive uprisings in Cuba. And what I was saying, and I know many of you, let's help these people, even if it's just helping with internet, because the regime shut the internet off. So the Biden administration wouldn't do that, of course. So I said, I'll do it. And so we were going to try to do Starlink, and Musk would have moved the satellites there, but you need to have devices on the ground in order to get Starlink. Biden wouldn't let us bring the devices in, so we couldn't do that. So then we're like, okay, what else can you do? Well, apparently you can send internet hot air balloons over areas, and it will beam down directly to a device. Even if you don't have anything else connecting, just your phone, you could get it. And so we looked at it, we priced it out. I was going to spend like 20-30 million from Florida to be able to do internet over there during this period of time. And the company that we were working with backed out because they thought that the Biden administration was going to pull their business license if they helped us with this contract and that. So not only did they not do anything to help the people of Cuba when they were showing the dissatisfaction with the regime, they even blocked our attempts in Florida to do the same. My sense is that the time is going to be running out on this regime. It's not going to be able to go on much longer, and I know that there'll be better days ahead. So I won't be the only one that'll be excited about that. I know there'll be a lot of people down here, but I think we can all agree what you need is an end to the regime, not just rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic, not just saying, oh, we're going to start doing business and they'll be a little more accommodating. You can't do business with criminals. You can't do business with people that have stolen so much from so many people. Which brings us to today's bill signing. We have worked together with members of the Florida legislature for many, many years to combat pernicious foreign influence in Florida institutions. And this is not just an issue that Florida has to deal with. It's an issue that has become, unfortunately, nationwide. More and more foreign countries with agendas are trying to influence different American institutions, including colleges and universities, but also businesses and other things of that. So that's one of the reasons why a couple years ago I signed legislation banning the Chinese Communist Party from purchasing land in the state of Florida. They want to buy farmland, not here. We're not doing that. We've also signed legislation to combat corporate espionage in Florida, and a lot of that is businesses that are controlled, at least in some ways, by the Chinese Communist Party. And of course, anything involving Cuba is going to be controlled by the government as well. We made sure that foreign applications such as TikTok couldn't be on state-issued devices and state networks because we wanted to make sure we had strong cybersecurity. We also awarded $1.9 million to establish the Office of Secure Florida within the Department of Commerce. I know Alex Kelly will talk about that. We have 21 military installations. We're home to 3 combatant commands in the state of CENTCOM, SOUTHCOM, and SOCOM. We, of course, are a target here in the state of Florida from foreign espionage. We've cracked down on foreign involvement in higher education, and we've made sure we've identified countries that would represent a threat to Florida and made sure we have laws that prohibit things like charitable organizations from doing, because they will run money through charities in order to be able to accomplish their mission. The CCP, Russia, Iran, North Korea, Cuba, in Syria, as well as Maduro's Venezuela. Those are the countries that we've been concerned about, and we've worked really, really hard to do it. So today is a continuation of those efforts. H.B.905 is titled the Foreign Interference Restriction and Enforcement Act, and I'll be signing that into law momentarily. It does a lot of different things, but particularly with respect to Cuba. It authorizes local governments and tax collectors to revoke business tax receipts for businesses operating in Cuba in violation of federal law. It creates accountability for false declarations regarding business activities in Cuba. Knowingly submitting a false declaration related to unlawful activity involving Cuba will now constitute a third-degree felony in the state of Florida. Additionally, the federal government changes Cuba's diplomatic status. The bill provides limited temporary authority for Florida to suspend certain restrictions while allowing the legislature to review long-term policy decisions. Additionally, this legislation prohibits pre-planned adoption agreements and surrogacy contracts involving citizens or residents of foreign countries of concern. China ships people here for birth. They do, it's really a seedy thing, and I'm glad that we were able to do that. I know we're hoping that the Supreme Court is going to interpret the 14th Amendment so that we can put a stop to some of the people that are coming here for a month, having birth, and then going back to China. That's part of an operation. Why would we let that happen and grant citizenship under those circumstances? Bill also creates enhanced criminal penalties for crimes committed to benefit foreign governments or foreign-owned terrorist organizations. As I mentioned, charitable organizations. It prohibits those organizations from accepting contribution or support from designated terrorist organizations, including the Council of American Islamic Relations, and the Muslim Brotherhood, which we have done in the state of Florida with our most recent bill cracking down on the expansion of Sharia. The bill also requires the Department of State to maintain and publish a list of all foreign consulate offices and all sister city and sister state affiliations in Florida. I mean, Alex may talk about it a little bit, and maybe Jenna will. We have cities that have like sister agreements with some really bad spots. And so this bill addresses that. But it's one thing to do it, but to do it, if you're doing a sister agreement, we have the Adam Smith Center at Florida International University. And you do a sister agreement with like his hometown, okay, fine. But to talk about some of these countries of concern, again, that allows them to have influence over our way of life here in Florida, that we don't want to do that. So if you go back, I mean, remember when I first became governor, we had to deal with the Confucius Institutes that were popping up, including in Miami-Dade County. And because we work together with the legislature, those Confucius Institutes are a thing of the past. They don't exist anymore in Florida because we recognize they were CCP-directed entities, and they were basically trying to get into our schools to distribute propaganda. So we were doing that. We've done a lot on Cuba, on Iran, on all these others. And then today, I think this is a really important advancement in those efforts. So I want to thank everybody that's been involved in it. This is going to make a difference. We're going to hear from some speakers, and then I'll go ahead and sign and make it official. So we'll start with our Commerce Secretary, Alex Kelly.
Well, Governor, thank you so much, and thank all of you. And Governor, I want to just really pick up on your point in three ways. That, your point that we can't do business with criminals. This legislation, Representative, thank you so much for sponsoring this. This legislation, I think, really does three critical things. First, we have to know who we're doing business with, whether it's a private company, whether it's an agency of government, whether it's an educational institution, partnership, any contract, any manner of business always inherits risk, but we have to de-risk those propositions. We have to know who we're doing business with at all times. This is a pro-business, protect business bill. Governor, you mentioned we have 21 major military installations, 3 combatant commands in this state, and those military agencies have critical relationships with our universities, with our colleges, with private business. We have over 900,000 Floridians who work in defense-related jobs, directly in defense-related jobs. Defense in the state of Florida is a $100 billion industry. It's a critical part of literally every corner of this state, and we can't put that at risk. Again, we have to protect what is critical to our national security and to jobs in the state of Florida. And then just, I'll lean a bit to my background is actually more education and workforce education. And when we think about the potential for bad actors to try to influence our way of life through our education systems, this bill, just like those prior two issues, this bill gets at that and it protects that and makes sure that bad actors cannot try to influence how we live freely. They can make sure they cannot influence that through our educational institutions. So Governor, Representative, just want to thank you for your leadership and thank you for signing this bill, sir.
Okay.
Hey, good afternoon. I'm Mike Williams. I'm the Assistant Commissioner for the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. And I want to take a minute to thank Governor DeSANTis for continuing to prioritize the safety of Florida citizens through legislation like House Bill 905. So signing this piece of legislation into law shows foreign terrorist organizations that we will not tolerate anyone coming into our state with the intention of causing harm to our citizens or our visitors. Now, House Bill 905 will help this department continue to strengthen domestic security and protect Floridians around the state. This bill sends a clear message that Florida will not put our citizens in a path to be vulnerable by countries that have proven their malicious intentions against our nation. And proactive legislation like House Bill 905 shows that analysis and intelligence gathered by our law enforcement analysts and agents is important to safeguard Floridians. So Florida will continue to work with our partners and a community to protect against domestic security threats, and the public can help with these efforts, by reporting suspicious activities. Look, I'll tell you this, nobody knows your neighborhood like you know your neighborhood. Nobody knows your street like you know your street. So if you see something, say something. And we've talked about that before, no matter how small. So that little piece of information that you pass on could be the final piece of the puzzle for us to clear a criminal case, take down a criminal organization or stop a terrorist attack in our community. So don't hesitate to share that information. Share it with local law enforcement or share it with FDLE through our website or through 1-800-FLA-SAFE, 1-800-FLA-SAFE. And with that, Governor, thank you very much.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Good afternoon. It is truly an honor to be here with you in this amazing new museum that not only honors the esteemed gentlemen who are here with us today who fought so hard for freedom, but honors the lives of so many who gave the ultimate sacrifice to fight for freedom. And that's what we're here today to talk about, freedom. We are fortunate to have leadership in the state of Florida that not only values our freedoms, but takes the action necessary to protect them. And that starts at the top with our great governor, Ron DeSantis. It also includes our cabinet, and I just want to say thank you to each of our cabinet members, from our CFO who's cracking down on fraud to our Attorney General James Uthmeyer. I've had numerous conversations with him on the threat that China and other foreign adversaries pose to our state, and I thank him for the multiple investigations he has opened. And Commissioner Simpson, I had the honor to work with him on legislation in the past that ensured that our charitable organizations in the state of Florida are not going to be used as slush funds or as front groups for those who seek to do us harm. Today, House Bill 905, I call it the FIRE Act. It protects the free state of Florida from being targeted by foreign adversaries, and it builds on the prior work that we've done in Florida, protecting our state colleges and universities, protecting our agricultural property and our property near military installations and critical infrastructure. I first became engaged in looking at state security issues through my research on nonprofit accountability. I came across this 2023 annual threat assessment from the U.S. Office of National Intelligence that said foreign interests such as China are using a variety of tools, like front groups, in order to build influence at the state and local level to shift U.S. policy in their favor because of the belief that local officials are more pliable than our federal counterparts. I hosted roundtables over the course of 2 years to discuss and flesh out what exposures our state and communities still have to the foreign influence campaigns. And I want to thank everyone who participated and contributed to those conversations, including Attorney General Uthmeyer, Lieutenant Governor Jay Collins, Representative Owen, Secretary Allende, and numerous academic scholars, subject matter experts, and retired military and law enforcement officials. I also want to thank my colleagues in the legislature who have been an integral part in getting this across the finish line, starting with my counterpart in the Senate. She couldn't be here today, Senator Erin Grahl, but she is truly a great partner in all legislation. We also work together to pass Florida's SAVE Act. She's thoughtful. She's thoughtful and she's strong. It's been an honor to work with her, as well as Representatives Owen, Redondo, Alvarez, including here Representatives Blanco and Fabricio. Thank you for your work, and Senator Burgess for his work on past legislation. In Florida, we are a beacon for freedom and liberty. People come here for refuge from oppression. Our individual freedoms must not only be treasured, but they must be protected. As you heard, we know our foreign adversaries are targeting state and local governments, and this bill gives local governments additional tools to push back against foreign influence and interference operations. One of those tools we heard about is to give tax collectors another way to ensure that businesses aren't breaking our law and doing business with Cuba. And I want to thank your tax collector, Daryl Fernandez, for bringing forth that very important issue to us. We also know these foreign adversaries do not believe in freedom like we do. China's constitution, for example, includes duties and obligations of Chinese citizens, compelling them to do anything that is deemed in the interest of the motherland of China. And we know China is reaching beyond its borders into our borders to try to enforce its laws against people who are in our state. The FIRE Act seeks to deter that transnational repression and protect the freedom of all Floridians by increasing penalties if a foreign agent harasses or targets them or commits any crime with the intention to benefit a foreign country or terrorist organization. We also, in the state of Florida, we support a free and independent Cuba, and this bill gives the governor the tools And this bill gives the governor the tool to waive certain restrictions so that we can open up relations with Cuba when the time is right and the regime is changed and we have a free Cuba once again. We also saw, and you heard from the governor in recent months, alarming reports of Chinese nationals exploiting our surrogacy and immigration laws. That is a serious national and state security risk. I'll add to what the governor said. One Chinese billionaire has fathered over 100 American-born children using surrogacy. And there's example after example, but these children are born on United States soil, they're granted United States citizenship, then they're shipped back to China where they're raised under the communist regime. In the future, they can return here as full citizens and live in our free and open society. They could potentially run for office, all the while still being compelled to act in the interests of communist China. The FIRE Act stops this trafficking of children in the state of Florida by prohibiting surrogacy contracts with parties who are a citizen or resident of a foreign country of concern. These are the realities that we are dealing with. Our work in the area of state security never ends. We must remain vigilant and continue to make sure that we protect our great state of Florida from attack by our foreign enemies. The FIRE Act tells them we are paying attention and think twice before targeting our great state.
Okay, anyone wants to be, I'll sign right here, so come on up if you want to be a part of it. I'm going to do a few. I'm going to do a few more comments and do some questions. I want to thank Senator Grahl, who did it in the Senate, and then Jenna. I mean, she did this bill. She did our bill. She did our Florida SAVE Act bill, election integrity, and she did the bill that provides for the decertification of the partisan teacher unions. And so that's a big deal to do those three in one session. So great job for Jenna. Okay, do we got any questions back there?
Governor, the FBI director told Fox News that the Bureau had foiled a terrorist attack in Florida, and I was just wondering if you knew anything about that, if they had told you anything about that.
I have not been briefed on that.
Timeline for shutting down Alligator Alcatraz, or what the plan is for the facilities in the future?
So I think as most people who know, this is something we were asked to do because they didn't have bed space at DHS at the beginning of the Trump administration, and we were happy to do it. We're all in on this mission. But we don't choose who goes there. They send, and then they're staged, and then they're repatriated to their home country. And that's been 22,000. illegal aliens have done that. And if we didn't have that, presumably many of them would have been released back into Florida communities. And that includes Tren de Aragua gang members. It includes a lot of people, if you look at the mix that's gone through there, that are very problematic and we don't want in our communities. So, but they didn't have any money last year. Now they got a big influx. I know they've been working to expand detention space. So if they come to us and say, yeah, we're going to start sending to other places, and they're not sending to us, well, then obviously it was always meant to be temporary. I'm not going to keep something there for no reason. There were people when we started this, like, oh, this is going to lead to the development of the, because it's the airport, it's an airport, it's already built, but they were saying it's going to lead to like development of Everett. No, it's not. You know, when there's not a need for it, then it'll get broken down. I don't know that that's the case. I mean, I know that there have been reports. I've spoken with people like Tom Homan. I think there's certainly a view, at least some view in the administration, they still need the beds, but if they tell us they're not going to send any more there, then obviously we're not just going to do it just to do it. I mean, it was there to serve a purpose. It was never meant to be permanent, and I hope that they have the resources to be able to handle it themselves. Had they had normal DHS operations under Biden, they may have been able to handle that. But I can tell you, in Florida, when President took office, and I started talking with people like Tom Homan, we had the lowest number per capita of beds for them, and which obviously just wasn't going to be adequate. So it has over 22,000, which has been a big deal. And I know that it's certainly made the state safer. There's no question about it. So I'm glad we've been involved in that. We'll continue to do it, but if they don't need it, then just let us know, and we'll pivot accordingly.
Some vendors say they haven't been getting paid by the state at Alligator Alcatraz. Do you know why that is?
I don't know which vendors you're referring to, so you have to ask Kevin Guthrie on that. I mean, I know there's been it was obviously a manufactured narrative to try to say that the state wasn't going to get reimbursed for this, even though the president of the United States went when it was open and said they're going to get reimbursed, and even though we've received assurances that'll happen. But FEMA reimbursements, this was done through FEMA because they didn't have the reconciliation bill yet when we did it, and so it was FEMA. And then you got to submit and you get reimbursed. I know we are going to get reimbursed on our end. How then that money goes to the vendors or all that, that'd be a question for Kevin Guthrie. But our operations there and mission there are reimbursable expenses. But here's the thing. What are the costs of not helping out and doing it? And there is costs. There's costs in education, healthcare, law enforcement, a whole bunch of other things that if you're not in the mission and you're not helping, that can be really, really detrimental to taxpayers in Florida. And people don't usually talk about that. I mean, they'll hit the Trump administration. Oh, they're spending money, in here or there to do this, to enforce the law. But they don't really want to talk about what are the costs when you don't enforce the law. And there are definitely costs to taxpayers with respect to illegal immigration. There's also costs when you have some of these localities and states around the country that aren't serious about law enforcement writ large. And we are a law and order state in Florida, even apart from the illegal immigration issue. I mean, across the board, we have stood by law enforcement through thick and thin. We have strong laws on the books. You remember when they were trying to do no cash bail in the Miami-Dade court system? We put a stop to that very quickly because it wasn't going to work. And we've been very strong against child predators, which is something that is, unfortunately, it's like, these people just come out of the woodwork, and it's a really, sad commentary on some parts of humanity that you'd see this. But we throw the book and make sure that people are going to do. In fact, we reauthorize the death penalty for pedophiles in the state of Florida. That should be the penalty. So I hope that, having a 50-year low in the crime rate, that is something that it obviously takes a lot of work with the people on the ground. We've got great sheriffs. We've got a lot of great police chiefs. Not 100%, but a lot. I think we have the best in the country. We've had a lot of people move to Florida to serve in law enforcement. Do you want to be treated well here or be treated poorly in Seattle or some of these places? I mean, obviously, it's a very enticing thing to want to come down and do it, but we've also had the good policy. We have not embraced the jailbreak policies. We have not done what some of these other states have done by eliminating cash bail. You know, I've got the governor of Illinois, he's chirping now. And he eliminated cash bail in Illinois. That makes the people less safe, not more safe. You apprehend a criminal and they put them right back on the street? Are you kidding me? They have weak laws against the criminal element. But I would also note, during COVID, he had locked down Illinois, tight as a tick, and his family was down in Wellington living in a free state of Florida. How does that make sense that would be allowed to happen? And I know a lot of people were very, very upset about that. So all being said, we've done, the law and order has been very important, and we'll continue to do it. Okay, we got one more? Or?
The three legal challenges this week saying Florida's maps violate the state constitution.
Well, it doesn't. We've been down this road before. We'd been down this road in 22 when I fought the legislature on the maps because we had a racially gerrymandered district in North Florida, and I said that was unconstitutional. They initially said if you dismantle it, that it would violate Florida's constitution. I said no, it wouldn't, and so we did it. It went up, and it was approved. I think it lost in trial court, but then it got upheld at the Supreme Court. And so that was the North Florida. There was another racially gerrymandered district in Southern Florida, which this new map unpacks. And it has these like crazy claws or whatever going out, and it was drawn on the basis of race. Now what they said was, well, that really didn't have anything to do with Florida's constitution. That the Voting Rights Act requires that racially gerrymandered district. And at the time, even though I personally didn't think that was the original meaning of the VRA to have those crazy districts, the jurisprudence had not necessarily evolved to the point. As we started getting into 24 and 25, well, we knew that those districts were not going to be long for this world. So remember, I called this, people said, oh, they're responding to Virginia. I called this special session, I issued the proclamation in January, because I knew the Calais decision was going to come down, and I knew that it was going to say what it did. So what does that mean? It means Florida's provision on redistricting that says you must use race is not constitutional. So not only do we have the right to unpack it, we had a responsibility to unpack it. And I would challenge people, look at Virginia's just got nixed. Look at California, how it's drawn. Crazy snakes, this and that. And then look at Florida's. They're compact districts. Visually, you look at it, and it's trying to get the population to do. So I think, it'll ultimately be successful. As we've learned, and I'm not saying on this one, sometimes they'll rush to court, get a ruling. We went on appeal and all this. So I don't know exactly how it's going to go procedurally, but I know at the end of the day, we'll be upheld. I think that it was a good job that was done, and it was appropriate, not only because you did have an unconstitutional district and there did need to be redraw, but this is a different state than it was 5 or 6 years ago. I mean, we've netted 2 million people since the census. That has caused issues in terms of how these districts were organized before. You'd have one district would vote this much, one this. So I think the new map really addresses the constitutional deficiency, but then also just recognizes that the state has changed a lot in a very short period of time. And look, some people tell me, Governor, stop bringing all these people here. There's too many. I'm not bringing anybody. Understand, it's a free country. If you want to move from Miami to Portland, I don't know why you would, but if you did, you have a right to do it. Portland can't stop you. Oregon can't stop you. If people want to come here, they don't have to check with me. As a U.S. citizen, you have a right to go anywhere in the country you want. But it just so happens that a lot of people have decided, to come here over the years, and we've seen an increase in income, population, all these other things. But, I always tell people, and I get I'm not asking people to come because there's pressure points that happen, traffic, this other stuff, and we'll work through, we put money in and all that, but it's not an easy thing to do. But I also have to say look, I'm not asking people to come, but do you want me to do policies like Illinois and California that drives people you don't want that. You want to have the good policies. So we're going to continue to do that and make sure things continue going in a strong way. Thanks, everybody. God bless.